When a Priest Falls in Love, a story by Eby's Heart. You will sleep with our second son, Father Caleb, to continue our lineage, were the words that came out of Okeke's mouth to her widowed daughter-in-law, Nkeru. Nkeru looked at him with wide-eye shock and ran off. She quickly ran into her hut and packed her things to leave. Her in-laws didn't try to stop her. She has no place to go, so she will return, her father-in-law Okeke whispered to his wife. When Nkeru got to her grandmother's farm, she fell on the ground crying. Her grandmother, who had discussed with her in-laws about Nkeru staying to birth children for her late husband, thought they had sent her away. But when she learnt it was Nkeru who ran away, she warned her never to try such and be grateful her husband's family found her worthy to stay back after the death of her husband and birth children. No one will ever marry you again after your husband died within 1 year of marriage. They all believe you are a spiritually corrupt child. So go back and be grateful your husband's family want you and did not accuse you of killing their son. Nkeru cried, but because she had nowhere else to go, returned to her husband's family, who made her to kneel down and beg them to accept her back. When she got into her hut, she cried her heart out, begging her late husband to come and take her with him. Her husband Ikem fell from a palm tree 2 weeks after their marriage and became paralyzed. Nkeru cared for him until he died 7 months later. Nkeru, being a young woman in a village where almost every young widow is accused of killing her husband, was given the choice of staying back with her late husband's family and give them sons through her late husband's younger brother, who was a priest. Meanwhile, Father Caleb, a Catholic priest who went to study in Rome, just received a letter from his parents. "Your only brother is dead, come home immediately," the letter read. Father Caleb wept and asked for permission to travel home immediately. When he got home, he was angry that they already buried his brother and he didn't even get to see his corpse. The next morning, his father told him the main reason why they sent for him. "Your brother's wife is still very young and without a child. You are the only surviving son that we have and we must continue our lineage." Father Caleb, who was still confused, snapped at his father to be clear and specific. "We are saying you should give us grandchildren though, Nkeru, your only brother's wife. It is going to be a secret between our family and your priesthood will still be intact. We would have asked Nkeru to get pregnant from anywhere, but we just don't want another man's child running around here when we have someone like you." Father Caleb started shouting at his parents for being wicked and trying to ruin him. "Do you still remember that this land and the house you are living in was built by the village because of me? This village have been feeding you with quality meals while they starve because your son is the only Catholic priest precisely from this village. Do you remember what they did to the family of that priest in our neighboring village when their son got a woman pregnant? They burnt the house they suffered to build for their parents and banished them. If you don't want any of these things I mentioned to befall you, then you must let Nkeru go and make her life choices or leave me out of it." Caleb was about to leave when Nkeru came out to greet him. Immediately Nkeru set her eyes on him. She fell in love immediately. But Caleb didn't even look at her twice. He was upset at his parents, so he entered his room and slammed the door. 1 week later, after Okeke and his family have decided to let Nkeru go to avoid the stigma that may follow and also avoid being banished. They told Nkeru that Caleb have refused to accept their request and that she was free to leave. Nkeru, who had tried everything possible to capture Father Caleb's attention, went diabolical. She visited her grandma, who took her to meet a man that gave her a certain herb to rub all over her body. "Once you apply this herb, try as much as possible to hug him, at least for some seconds, and then say 'I love you so much.' You will see magic in action." Nkeru, who felt she could not live without Caleb, started planning on how to carry out her plans. She got everything ready, but because Caleb hardly talked to her, she didn't know he would be leaving the next day. So Nkeru woke up on that day, swept the compound and carried out her morning functions, then sat down and was waiting for Caleb to return from the morning mass, only to hear that he will be leaving to Rome from there. "You mean Father Caleb will not return to this house again?" Nkeru asked almost in tears to her sister-in-law. She quickly entered her room, applied the herb and ran off. "Where are you going to?" her sister-in-law asked. I wanted to attend the morning mass, Nkeru lied and ran off. By the time she got there, the morning mass had dismissed and Father Caleb was discussing with some persons who were bidding him goodbye and wishing him well. His parents were carrying his bags and smiling at everyone around. Nkeru saw them and dodged. How do I hug Caleb now? She asked herself, crying. She was still wondering what to do as the carriage that will pick Caleb was sighted from afar. She came out and walked desperately towards him. Okeke and his wife shouted, Nkeru, what are you doing here? You are not supposed to be seen in gatherings, including church, until your mourning period is over. Nkeru, who was walking too fast, pretended not to hear them and fell down on the floor at the feet of Father Caleb, stretching like someone who was having a seizure. Help, help, her mother-in-law urged her son to help lift her up. Carry her home for us, people must not see this. Caleb, who was worried that he might miss his train that morning, started walking very fast to get home quicker. When Nkeru noticed that Caleb had left his parents and hurrying home alone, she hugged him so tight and whispered, I love you so much. Immediately Father Caleb heard it, he felt a very sweet and hot sensation all over his body. But he managed to control himself. When he got home, he called on his sister to watch over Nkeru and that he needed to leave in order not to miss his train. Caleb walked out in a hurry, while Nkeru, who couldn't hold it anymore, burst out in tears. I lost him, I lost everything. Caleb quickly got into his waiting carriage and it drove off. Nkeru was devastated, she cried for hours and fell asleep. Her in-laws tried everything possible to know what was upsetting her, but she locked her room and refused to answer anyone. When it dark and everyone had gone to bed, Nkeru heard a faint knock on her door. She was about to continue sleeping, when she heard, It's me, Father Caleb. Nkeru quickly opened the door and hugged him so tight, saying, What happened to your journey? Father Caleb smiled and said, Everything can wait. They made the sweetest love Nkeru has ever made all through the night. When it was morning, Nkeru, who was scared of how to face her in-laws when they find out what she had done, sneaked out with her things and escaped. By the time Father Caleb, who was still feel very tired, woke up, Nkeru was nowhere to be found. He didn't even mind nor acknowledge his parents' worry when he rushed out shouting, Where is Nkeru? Where is Nkeru? His parents, who were preparing for morning mass, were so shocked to see him. What are you doing here? When did you come in? What are you doing here? Why are you looking for Nkeru? His parents threw several questions at him. When they noticed how worried and worked up he was and how he was desperately shouting Nkeru's name, his mother smiled and said, Nkeru went to the market in the next village, she will return later in the day. Caleb then tried to relax, but started asking the particular market that she went to. I want to meet her there, he said desperately. Due to Caleb's restlessness, his father gave him a sound slap to calm down and tell them why he came back and why he was asking about their daughter-in-law. He started crying and said, I love Nkeru so much, I don't know if I can live without her. I am even ready to stay back, so that I can stay close to her. Find her for me, find her, he shouted, crying. That was when his parents knew something was really wrong. Nkeru has bewitched my son, his mother fell on the ground weeping. Where is Nkeru? Find her for me, Okeke, father yelled at his daughter. Caleb was already preparing to leave when his younger sister came out of Nkeru's room to say that Nkeru took her things and maybe ran away. What? Caleb and his father shouted at the same time. She ran because she is scared of you, she is scared of the stigma this might create since both of you are no longer in support. I must find her, Caleb said and tried to go out. If you walk out of that door, I will write to the bishop right now about your inappropriate behavior, Okeke shouted at his son. I don't care, I love Nkeru, I have never felt this way about anyone before. I want to start a family with her. Caleb left angrily in search of Nkeru. Okeke quietly sat on a chair, clutching his chest and grunting in pain. This can't be happening to us now. What have we done? We have exposed our son and he has been bewitched. Call the youth. Nkeru must be found and exposed before she ruins my son's life, Okeke said with pain. Okeke wanted to expose Nkeru first before anyone sees her with Caleb. It didn't take long before the whole village was buzzing with Nkeru's sacrilegious act. Imagine trying to humiliate and trap a priest. It will never be well with Nkeru, everyone said as they were asking around, looking for her. Meanwhile, Nkeru was hiding in her grandmother's goat house, crying. Her grandmother even cried harder. Nkeru, my only surviving family, is missing, she told anyone that tried to listen. After 1 month, Caleb was invited by the church for trying to insult his vocation. He cried and said that he will never abandon the woman he loves, that he will continue waiting at least until he sees his love. The entire village were still looking for Nkeru, while they also prayed for Caleb to regain his senses. Nkeru is pregnant. I am going to be nursing a new baby soon, Nkeru's grandmother said to her best friend, Mama Ori, smiling. Mama Ori, who was also aware of Nkeru's whereabouts and have been helping Nkeru's grandmother to buy things from the market, was so happy about the news. They both danced, but Nkeru was so sad and worried. I cannot continue like this knowing that I tied the man I love so much down with charms. I want to confess and tell everyone why Caleb is acting the way he is. I have gotten a child from him, so it is time to let him go and I will face whatever punishment that comes. Her grandmother laughed so hard at her and said, he is acting that way because he truly loves you. There was never any charm. The man I took you to was not a herbalist. He is just a native medicine man, who treats my leg pain. He gave us an ordinary bitter leaf paste to rub on your body. So whatever Caleb is feeling for you, is purely natural. I had to do something when you came crying to me. Nkeru, upon hearing this, ran outside to go and meet Caleb. Her grandmother was simply smiling while saying, "Go, my daughter, you have really suffered, go." She ran straight to her late husband's house. While almost there, some persons recognized her and started beating her and cursing her for bringing shame to their village. How can you seduce a priest with a charm? That was how you killed your mother when she was giving birth to you. They hurled insults at her. The news that Nkeru was being beaten by the villagers quickly got to Okeke and his family. They quickly prepared and rushed out to stop her from getting to their house. Caleb was at the church praying. Everyone believed he was praying for God's mercy, but he was actually praying for Nkeru's safety and asking God to let him see her again. The bishop already gave him a grace of 7 more days to return to his senses or face permanent suspension from the church. He didn't care much about that, he was more worried about Nkeru, finding her and telling her how much he loves her. Nkeru has been found, the youths have already taken her to the market square with beatings. Caleb overheard a man telling his wife close to the church's window. He quickly ran out of the church and headed straight to the market square crying. When he got there, he saw Nkeru almost half naked and tied on both hands like a goat. He saw his father addressing the youth to help his son by banishing Nkeru from their land. Caleb squeezed himself into the crowd and hugged Nkeru so fiercely and started crying. I missed you so much. I wanted to say I love you too. From the moment I saw you the first day I returned, I fell deeply in love with you. I have never talked to a woman in my life, so I did not know how to express myself to you. Nkeru shouted, I love you too. And I can't live without you. The whole village, upon hearing this, became annoyed. We all sent you to the seminary to become a priest, and since you became a priest, we have been fending for your parents and family. But this is how you repay us. Okeke quickly shouted, Stop, this is not my son, this woman here bewitched him, just like he killed my first son, her late husband. Everyone shouted. Nkeru was then taken to the king and everyone was shouting, Banish her, banish her. Her grandmother, who arrived when they were beating Nkeru, begged and begged before collapsing on the floor. Okeke instructed some youths to forcefully take Caleb home and lock him up. He will remain locked until tomorrow. Let me quickly write to the bishop, Okeke said while entering his own room. The king instructed his guards to lock Nkeru up while he thinks of an appropriate judgment. Nkeru's grandma was taken home by her best friend. She continued crying and blamed herself for encouraging Caleb and Nkeru's love. The next day, Caleb told his father that he has denounced his priesthood and will have nothing to do with it again unless Nkeru is released and kept safe. Okeke, upon hearing this, panicked and went to the bishop. "My son is in serious bondage of witchcraft. I need your help now," Okeke said while crying like a child. The bishop asked Okeke to come and meet him the next day with Caleb. When Okeke and Caleb got to the bishop, Caleb maintained his stance. "I love Nkeru so much and I cannot live without her." The bishop then decided that Caleb's wish be granted. Okeke cried like a child. He thought of what he will lose, the shame his family will face, and the possibility of banishing him from his village, and left. He went straight to the king and demanded to see Nkeru. When he did, he knelt down and pleaded with Nkeru to liberate his son. "I know I tried to arrange for both of you to bear me grandchildren, but I later realized it was an abomination that can get us all killed. I didn't charm your son, he loves me truly, just like I love him." Nkeru's reply shocked Okeke. "How dare you lie to me? Caleb hated you when he came home and wanted nothing to do with you," Okeke said with disdain. "But he developed feelings for me, just like I did for him too. I love him so much," Nkeru said, crying again. "But because I love him so much, I will let him go back to his vocation and leave this village to raise my child in my father's village," Nkeru said, rubbing her tummy while tears flowed freely from her face. "You are pregnant?" Okeke asked with shock on his face. He started crying again and said, "That is my grandchild you are carrying too. We will face the punishment that come with it together," he said, and hugged Nkeru tightly. Nkeru was later released at Okeke's pleas. She went straight to Caleb. Okeke and his wife allowed them to pass the night together to arrive at a decision with proper goodbye. "I wanted to tell you how much you mean to me when I woke up, but you were gone," Caleb said while kissing Nkeru on her face. Nkeru told him how much she suffered due to the hunt for her by the villagers. They both slept in each other's arms. However, Nkeru woke up the next day with a letter by her pillow. Caleb wrote, "It was heavenly to experience love in my lifetime, even if it seemed inappropriate and spontaneous, but I cannot never allow the mother of my loved child to be banished and treated poorly because of me. That is why I have decided to return to Rome and face my vocation squarely. Take care of my unborn child, Ikenna, for me. Please forgive my parents, live and raise our child with them." Nkeru ran outside crying. He left me," she cried uncontrollably. Okeke also saw a letter from Caleb. He begged him and his mother to take good care of Nkeru. The news of Caleb returning to Rome quickly spread and everyone was happy. Nkeru left their village for some months to give birth in her father's village to avoid people ridiculing her. She returned after some months and received about 4 letters and gifts Caleb had sent to her over the months. They wrote to each other almost every day of their lives. True love is not for the faint-hearted.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.